for the majority, if not almost all, of these kinds of horrible crimes. The guidelines have enhancements in them.
In two areas that you said you disagree. What are those two areas?
At the time that the guidelines were drafted, it was an aggravating factor, a substantial aggravating factor, to use a computer in order to distribute and disseminate the images, because the ordinary crime was not committed by computer. So the
Would you now agree with me that computers are sort of the venue of choice for child pornographer people?
Yes.
Okay, so here's my point. If you believe, as I do, the computer has created a bigger demand, there are more photos out there because of the internet, more websites exposing this garbage. Wouldn't you want to deter people from going down that road?
Senator, this crime is among the most difficult.
No, answer my question. Would you want to deter people from going down the road of using the computer that allows these people to have access to millions of photos because of the technology? I want those people deterred.
Senator,
so if you're listening to my voice today and you're on a computer looking at child pornography and you get caught, I hope your sentence is enhanced, because the computer and the internet is feeding the beast here. That all these images out there are going to be more over time because people use computers. Now, didn't you also say that the number of images should not be considered as a sentence enhancement?
Senator, with respect to the computer, one of the most effective deterrents is one that I imposed in every case and that judges across the country impose in every case, which is substantial supervision.
Wait, Judge. You think it is a bigger deterrent to take somebody who's on a computer looking at sexual images of children in the most disgusting way is to supervise their computer habits versus putting them in jail?
No, Senator, I didn't say versus.
That's exactly what you said. I think the best way to deter people from getting on a computer and viewing thousands and hundreds and over time maybe millions, the population as a whole, of children being exploited and abused every time somebody clicks on, is to put their ass in jail, not supervise their computer usage.
Senator, I wasn't talking about versus.
You just said you thought it was a deterrent to supervise them. I don't think it's a deterrent. I think the deterrent is putting them in jail. Does sentencing have a deterrent component?
Senator, would you let her respond?
Yes. Does sentencing have a deterrent component?
Yes, Senator. Deterrence is one of the purposes of punishment, and Congress has directed courts to consider various means of achieving deterrence. One of them, as you said, is incarceration. Another, as I tried to mention, was substantial periods of supervision once the person...
So if I could may ask you, in your view, is more of a deterrent to have somebody substantially supervised in terms of their computer use who's looking at child pornography than it is to put them in jail?
Senator, I'm not saying it's more or less.
That's exactly what you're saying.
What I'd like to point out is that if we're going to, let me say it this way. Congress has authorized courts to use a number of different means to achieve the purposes of punishment.
And one of them is an enhanced punishment by using a computer.
The enhancement with respect to using a computer relates to the penalty in terms of incarceration.
And you would choose not to apply that in these cases. You've said that. I'll read you the quote, but you've decided not to apply the use of a computer as an enhancement. You've also said you're not going to hold the number of images that the person has looked at as a sentencing enhancement factor. Is that true?
No, Senator, it's not the number of images that the person has looked at, because we don't have that information.
Well,
it is the number of images that they've either received or distributed
well,
that are.
whether you don't know, we don't know if they looked at them, but you're not going to hold it against them that they received 10,000 images versus 100.
That's not what I've said, Senator.
Well, here's what you said. I've decided to apply my general policy disagreement with respect to those enhancements. At least that is the computers and the number of images. But what she's saying, the reason she's always below the recommendation, I think, is because she doesn't use the enhancements available to her. She takes them off the table. And I think that's a big mistake, Judge. I think that every federal judge out there should make it harder for somebody to go on a computer and view this filth. That if you use that venue, which is the venue of choice for all these child pornography cases, that you use it against them. I think the more you download, like drugs, the more you have, the more you should go to jail. You've made a conscious decision to disregard those two enhancement sentencing factors, and I think that is a wrong way to go in terms of deterrent. To me, putting somebody in jail for using a computer is more of a deterrent than supervising their activity of watching the computer. That's just a difference that we have. I know I'm out of time, and listen, you've lived an incredible life, but here's one thing that won't happen to you as we wrap this up. How would you feel that if I'd had a letter from somebody accusing you of something, a crime or misconduct, for weeks, and I give it to Senator Durbin just before this hearing's over, and not allow you to comment on the accusation? How would you feel about that?
Senator, I'm not sure. I don't understand the context of the question.
Well, did you watch the Kavanaugh hearings?
No, sir.
Are you familiar what happened in the Kavanaugh hearings?
Generally.
Senator, your time is.
Well, please, Mr. Chairman. So, to be honest with you, so minute and 47 seconds, she filibustered every question I had, and she has a right to give an answer, but I'm trying to make a point in 20 minutes. You were here for Kavanaugh. If she's confused about what happened, some people on the other side had an accusation against Judge Kavanaugh that during high school, he sexually assaulted somebody. And the rest is history. That was known to the people on the other side and never revealed during the meetings they had with Judge Kavanaugh. It was literally ambushed. He was ambushed. How would you feel if we did that to you?
Senator, I've appreciated the kindness that each of you has shown me to see me in your offices, to talk with me about my approach.
But my question is, what if it, during our 15-minute exchange, it was very pleasant? You're a very nice person. You have a lot to be proud of. I would never do that to you. If I had some information that's sketchy at best, that somehow you've done something wrong, I promise you, just from human decency, I would share it with you. I would not disclose it at the last minute of the last day of the hearing, and I've already given it to a newspaper so the whole country can read about it before you ever said a word.
Senator, she's had nothing to do with the cause.
No, but I'm asking her about
You won't even
how she may feel about what y'all did.
We have ordered. Your time has expired, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to finally complete an answer.
So, if I could
Just
address,
answer the question.
Senator, I don't have any comment on what procedures took place in this body regarding
What do you think
Justice
about the Kavanaugh hearing?
Kavanaugh. What I'd like to answer is your points about my sentencings in child pornography cases. The point of the guidelines is to assist judges in determining what punishment to provide in cases. And there are horrible cases, but the idea is that between the range of punishment that Congress has prescribed, judges are supposed to be providing proportional punishment based on what a person has done. The sentencing scheme doesn't place everybody at the same level. The point of judging and the guidelines is to look at what has happened in a case, compare defendants to each other in terms of what they've done, and give proportional penalties
Mr. Chairman, this is She has said, Mr. Chairman, she does not use sentence enhancements in the area of somebody using the computer for everybody.
Can I explain why, sir?
I'm gonna give the witness an opportunity to respond to you, Senator.
Finally.
At
Why?
the time that the guidelines were created for child pornography, this crime was primarily being committed by people who were literally mailing 1, 2, 5, 10, 100 photos at a time.
How's it being committed now?
Would she please
Go
let
ahead.
her complete her answer?
Go ahead.
As a result, the commission determined in the guidelines that it was a substantial aggravating factor if the facts of the case demonstrated that someone had been distributing hundreds of images, because what that meant was over this long, maybe it was a long period of time, they had collected one photo at a time, they had amassed it, they had potentially mailed one at a time, and that showed really aggravated, terrible conduct. I'm not saying as a baseline it's not terrible, it's all terrible. But what we're doing is we're differentiating among defendants. So in a world in which the mail is used for the purpose of distribution, it really matters whether the person has distributed 1 or 5 or 1,000. And so the guideline says, you know what? We are going to treat a person who's distributed 1,000 a lot worse, because that shows that this person is really engaged in this really horrible behavior. In comes the internet. On the internet, with one click, you can receive, you can distribute tens of thousands. You can be doing this for 15 minutes, and all of a sudden, you are looking at 30, 40, 50 years in prison.
Good. Good.
I understand.
Absolutely
but
good. I hope you are. Good.
Allow her to finish, please.
I hope you go to jail for 50 years if you're on the internet trolling for images of children and sexual exploitation. So you don't think that's a bad thing? I think that's a horrible
That's not
thing.
what the witness said, and she should be allowed to answer this question once and for all.
Senator, all I'm trying to explain is that our sentencing system, the system that Congress has created, the system that the Sentencing Commission is the steward of, is a rational one. It's a system that is designed to help judges do justice in these terrible circumstances by eliminating unwarranted disparities, by ensuring that the most serious defendants get the longest periods of time. And when modes of commission of the crime change such that in 2 seconds someone can receive or distribute thousands of images, that's no longer and this is what the commission found in their studies, an indicator of a person who, relative to other people, has committed this crime in a more aggravated way.
Well,
And so what we're trying to do is be rational in our dealing with some of the most horrible kinds of behavior. This is what our justice system is about. It's about judges making determinations in meting out penalties to people who have done terrible things.
it is not rational to take the venue of choice of child pornographers, the computer that have 85 billion images on it, and not consider that feeding the beast. We're trying to get people to stop this crap. So when you troll on the internet, you pull down thousands of images of children from the internet. I want you to stop that. I want people to go to jail who do that, because you're feeding the beast. We have a bill here, the Earn It Act, that would allow the victims who are on the internet over and over again to sue the media companies that provide these images. We have a fundamental differences of how you deter crime. I think the best way you deter crime when it comes to child pornography is you lower the bloom on anybody who goes onto the internet and pulls out these images for their pleasure.
Senator, every person in all of these charts and documents I sent to jail because I know how serious this crime is. Every person I discussed the harm of these terrible, terrible images to the victims who are portrayed in them. I talked about what this crime does to the children who are being abused in these photos, and on the other side of their terms of imprisonment, I ensured that they were facing lengthy periods of supervision and restriction in their computer use so they could not do this sort of thing again. That's what Congress has required of judges, and that's what I did in every case.